Hi, this is Sarah with Lasers and More, and today we are going to do a name, date, scroll cake topper. And the scroll is going to be using what are known as glyphs, and those are a part of some special fonts. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that our page is set up to about the right size of a Glowforge. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the text style panel. Now, there are two really good fonts for glyphs that I personally have. The first is called Amisteri Extras, and the second is called Cardinal Elements. Both of them are fonts that I have purchased over the years. They are both still purchasable. Cardinal Elements comes with a bunch of other fonts, including Cardinal Italic, Cardinal Sans, Cardinal Serif, and Amisteri comes with Amisteri Hand and Amisteri Script. But they have these things called glyphs, and in Silhouette on the text style panel you have the text style, glyphs, and spell check. And so you want to select glyphs. When you first go into glyphs, they're probably going to be showing up as small, and the arrow at the bottom here will be showing somewhere towards the small side, and it's going to be really hard to see what the different glyphs are. And so you can hover over them and see what they are, or you can scroll all the way up to large and you don't have to guess quite as much. So I'm going to go to large so you can see what I'm doing. And I know that there's a couple nice looking scroll sorts of things. And I've used this one before. You have to do a little bit of editing, but I know it comes out nice. So I'm going to go over to the left panel and select text. Click so that text gets started. I'm going to change it to a big font, not that big, and put the glyph in. And there it is. And then I'm going to hit space, and I'm also going to use this glyph. And that is all I'm going to use from the glyphs. And glyphs are pretty much already scalable vector files because all fonts are essentially vector files, which is why you're able to have them as size 8 or size 288, and they don't lose any of their clearness and crispness. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select them, and I'm going to convert to path because right now they still think that they are text. All right, now they know that they're not text anymore, so I'm going to ungroup them. And now let me zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to select the second one and bring it over the top of the first one. I'm going to use the green circle and rotate it a little bit so that when I have them touch, they still appear as relatively two different objects, but they're overlapping enough that when I go and engrave, they're going to show up okay. But do you see this little dangling part here that's not connected? We want that to be connected, and that's part of the first glyph. So you can either double click really quick on it, on the image itself, or if that's not your thing, you can go over to the panel and click edit points. Both get you to the same end point. Again, I'm going to zoom in by using the click and drag to zoom. And This one I am going to release the compound path. It makes it so that they are separate shapes. I am going to reinitiate the compound path of this hole with the rest of the shape because that will be an issue later if I don't. But what that lets me do is edit the nodes here for this little one. And then I am able to simply select both the little one that I just edited the nodes for and the big one and click weld. Now I can't do the same thing for this little break in the design here. So what I have to do is a little bit more complicated, but don't be scared. Let's zoom in even more and we'll double click to get the node editor. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to break this node apart using the break the outline button. And you will see a little red circle show up where there used to be a gray box. So let's grab the circle and see what happens. It's always hard to tell whether you're going to end up with that part of the line or the other part of the line. So I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to cross it over so it's easy to find later. And then I'm going to delete this particular node because I want to move this line, again, clicking and dragging on the red part and bringing it over. And that other node that I just deleted would have gotten in the way of me easily moving that over. So I'm rotating the purple box, which changes the angle of the line. And I'm going to click this box over here because it seems to be pushing that out of being straight, and rotate that. And then I'm going to move it up a little bit because it's not looking quite right. Now, that's still not going to engrave right. So what I have to do here is I have to, again, break the outline. And it appears that I broke it so that the first thing that I grabbed was the top. That's good. And so I'm going to drag the bottom one down. I'm going to take the purple box, and you can also not only change the angle, but you can shorten them. And so I've shortened that one. And when you get to a close proximity of another red dot, it's going to try to snap to it. So it got close, it wanted to snap, but the location that it was snapping to is not what I wanted. So I moved it back, and now I'm going to bring the other red box over to it. You saw it kind of snap straight over, and that's what I wanted. I want it to be in that location. I'm going to click this node here, and I'm going to do the smooth, convert the selected nodes to curves. It kind of smooths out what you've got. So I'm going to do that. It looks like it's going to make a little bit of a kink here when it is printing, so I just don't want that. And that looks a little bit smoother. Now we still have these two outstanding red dots, so I'm going to bring this over to about where I want it to connect to this red dot. And there we go, they are connected. And if I zoom back out using the zoom out magnifying glass, I am able to see what my glyph looks like. And I think that looks good. It's not going to be a problem when it prints out. So I'm going to select both of my glyphs and weld them together. Again, you can use the weld up in this top menu bar, or you can go over to the modify shapes and select weld from that pop-up. Either one, they work the same. Okay, so now we have the place where the date is going to go, and the name will go above it. And so I am going to pick another font. I think I'm going to go with Angelique looks pretty. And so let's put that there. That's way too big. Let's go to 48. And type in the name. We're going to use this as a cake topper for my son. So that looks good. The problem with M's is usually they don't connect over. So there are two different ways of dealing with that. And before we do anything else and go back past a point of no return, let's click weld. And so everything is welded, but you can see the little gray boxes around the I and the M. That means that they are not connected. So the I is a easy one. I am going to edit the nodes on it. Pull that down there. Pull that over there. And just make it so that it's kind of connected. It's a cake topper. It doesn't need to be robust. It just needs to be strong enough. So that looks good enough. Going to weld the two together. You can still tell it's a dotted I. You can move the M over so that it's, touching. Apparently I have snap two guides on and I don't want that. So I can make it so that it's touching, but that's not the look that I want for this. So I am going to just create a connection myself. And I'm going to do that using the line tools, and I'm going to select the curvy line and just start drawing and try to get some sort of swoop that kind of looks similar to what other parts of the text are having. And that looks okay to me. So I'm going to select them and weld them. And then I just noticed that the A and the L look like they're going to be a little bit fragile as well. So I'm going to, and the H apparently. I picked a bad font, but it's good for showing you how to do this. So I'm going to make these little boxes that are going to line up with the font and just bring it over. And I'm going to copy that and paste it. And just try to find a way to make it kind of blend with what's going on there. And one more time, I'm going to select them all and weld them. And they're not perfectly smooth, so I can go to the node editor, kind of smooth them out using the convert selected nodes to curves and see what that ends up looking like. You can also delete some of the new nodes that maybe aren't adding the right character. Let's see what that looks like now. So the A looks good, but the L still look kind of crappy. So I'm going to zoom in and see what we can do about that. All right. I don't like that one there, so let's get rid of it. Oops, don't need to move it. And let's click the smooth there. That one is a corner, so I'm able to move the purple line, and that looks like it's going to be a lot better. All right, here we've got some extra nodes going on that don't need to be there, so I'm going to delete those. And that looks smoother already. So let's step back and look at that, and that looks a whole lot better. Remember, this is going to be small, just a couple inches across, and so it's not going to be super obvious that there were problems. Okay. So now we want this to sit on top of the cake topper. We will rotate it just the slightest bit so that we get a little bit more overlap over here and a little bit less on the scroll up here. So now we're touching at a whole bunch of points, so it should be a strong enough joint for a cake topper. I would definitely look for a lot more connection on something like a keychain. So again, select both parts and click weld, and you can see that they've now joined together. The next thing you want is the date, and dates, in my opinion, don't typically look very good when they are super fancy types. So I'm going to grab something very standard. I think I'm going to just go with a good old standby of Cochin. I don't know why I like this font so much, but I do. And again, put that in there, and his birthday's in January. I want it a little bit smaller. So for this date, I want it to follow this line here. So I'm going to use the grab box, and I think it's still too big. So 50 looks like a good font size. And you grab the drag box and you drag it down to the line that you want it to follow. And you just keep moving it until you're happy with the placement. Okay, so I like where that's sitting and it's following the line nicely. And now this grab box lets it go higher above the line that you were telling it to follow, or lower below the line that you were telling it to follow. And I want it to sit just a smidgen below the line. So again, that when I weld it, there's going to be enough connection points that it will stay on securely. And that looks good to me. So if you've noticed, the previous shape all turned gray, and that is because this date is using the lines of this shape as how they're going to follow things, and we don't want it to do that anymore. We want it to just stay where it is, and so to make it stay where it is, you convert it to a path. Once you've converted it to a path, everything turns red again, and the shape is now usable once more. So I'm going to leave this selected and then select the outer shape, and I'm going to weld them together. And you can see where these weld lines are less thorough on the 2 and the 1 over here, so I'm going to go and edit those manually. And double click gets me into the node editor. I'm going to start by selecting that one and deleting it, and it's going the wrong way. They'll delete in a either counterclockwise or clockwise fashion depending on the shape. So I'm going to start deleting from there now, and it should go to the right, and then once it passes this corner, it'll go to the left. So delete, delete, delete. Now I've got a lot of connection for that 2. I'm happy with that. And I already know that it's going this way, it's zigzagging, so I'm going to delete this node and keep deleting until I have a lot more connection. So now the 1 is connected in many points, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I have to keep going back instead of just hitting delete a bunch because of the location that it is and how it's zigzagging. And so now we have lots of connection. Let's click out of there Zoom back out, and that looks really good. Things are connected, they're not going to fall off. And the final thing that I'm going to do for the design of this is it will be my son's 3rd birthday, so I'm going to put a big 3 on top, and I think I'm going to use a kind of cutesy font, cutesy for a little boy, not cutesy for an adult, and put a 3, and that looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to have that just sit over the I and the L. It can go anywhere you want. It doesn't have to go anywhere, but because I'm making this demo, I might as well make something that I can use, and so I can use this when he turns 3. So let's connect it all and weld, and it's connected, so again, I'm good with that. The last thing is this cake topper can't really go onto a cake very well right now. So it needs one of those sticks that will dig into the cake. So let's draw a relatively thin rectangle. I'm gonna make it just shy of a 1/4 inch. We'll do 0.192, that's fine. And drag it over so that it looks relatively centered. Now this design, I know from experience, doesn't center super well. So if I told it to center, and I'll just demonstrate that, it's going to make the stick go way off to the side. And it's because it's got this little thin dangly bit over here, and that's not where all the weight is, so I want it more centered under the highest mass portion. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to weld them together, and this is not going to dig into cake real well, so now I'm going to go down there and edit the points. So again, I'm going to use the drag over shape and zoom tool, double click to get a point editor, and there's no point here, but I want one, so I'm just going to click there. Now there's a point in the middle, and I'm going to drag it down until it looks like the right type of point. I think that that looks okay. And checking it out, it all looks to have good proportions, so I am happy with that. On second thought, I'm a little bit concerned about how thin some of these lines are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an offset of the entire design. I'm just going to make it the slightest, tiniest bit bigger by going to 0.01 inches. And you can barely see the difference. It just makes it look like it's a thicker line. I'm going to I'm going to change it to the corner shape so that the pointiest parts stay pointy, and then apply. And then let's zoom in because I want to select the right one, and I want to delete this inner one, so let's see if that's what gets deleted. It is. And so now you can see that those letters are just a little tiny bit thicker, and I'm going to feel like that's a little bit safer design, and it should actually last in storage until January without getting broken. So, as always, we save to hard drive as an SVG, and I'll call it Michael Cake Topper. Click OK. Now let's go to our Glowforge app and go to the dashboard, click Create, and upload from file. Find the file that you just created, and it's going to take a moment to prepare. And there it is. And I am going to do this on something that cuts the same as the medium basswood plywood. And then I want it to print in this area, so I'm going to use the rotate tool and rotate it and put it in this area, and I'm going to make it bigger so that it takes up as much of that leftover material as is possible. This particular board has some warping, so it is being held down with magnets. And that looks good. I am going to set the focus to over here because sometimes that changes things. It's going to take a moment to focus. I find that that makes it so I don't hit print and then hit cancel right afterwards, because once it actually focuses on the location that you're going to be printing, then sometimes it makes a slight adjustment, and you might have seen it just kind of change the image just a little bit, and so that makes it so that I need to move it a little bit more, and that looks good now. I have clearance on both sides. I'm ready to print. And let's see how long this is going to take. I'm guessing 2 minutes. Oh, 3. Now let's go watch. So here's the finished product just off the Glowforge. It still has its masking on it, but this is how it came out, and it came out exactly how I would have wanted it. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please let me know in the comments. Ask any questions there. Click subscribe, and I will make more videos soon. Thank you.